Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast that looks at projects throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
I'm Lewis.
I'm Hamish.
And on today's episode, Lewis is going to be giving us a mystery report.
We have. I've spent all week working away, researching this very particular topic so I could tell the both of you here. So we've brought along Hamish to hear all about it. How are you doing, Hamish?
I'm very excited, obviously.
Yes.
Whole weeks of work.
Whole weeks of work. I nearly got fired this week. So like, Lewis, you need to do your job. And I'm like, but I need to write the project.
Project manager is your position, right? You're managing a project. Makes sense. Yeah. How are you, Lewis?
Yeah, not bad. We've been. It's the final day of our 4-day Jubilee weekend.
Yeah, Platty Jubes, as I've heard people calling it.
So
don't say that. Come on,
it's awful, isn't it?
God save the Queen and all that for giving us 2 days off.
one more day at least, we get that.
Yeah. Well, when she goes, we'll get a whole week off. So I'm looking forward to that.
You're gonna keep royalists until then.
Yeah.
And might be another 3 years or so.
Oh wow. Maybe we'll get some time off if Charles dies.
Fingers
crossed.
crossed.
Go first then, do you reckon?
What?
Is he going to go first?
He might do. He's an old man.
Yeah, he doesn't look great, does he? I mean, none of them particularly do.
No, not even like William looks that great anymore.
It's all the pressures, the public pressures of being a royal. It's just...
Harry seems to be doing all right.
Yeah. He's left the
run away, that's what.
Yeah.
And he's married to someone who is maybe more normal in a certain way.
Yeah, I saw a thing when all the royal family were arriving at the thing, when Harry and Meghan were there, like the crowd were cheering Meghan Markle, and the BBC correspondent was like, "Oh, that's surprising." And it's like, no, people generally like her.
Yeah.
Just like you've got like old racist people that hate her.
And the papers, that's literally
because they've been told, it's a very
most people
Insidious.
quite like Meghan Markle. She seems like a real person.
So you have actually been watching some of it then?
No, I've just been seeing like TikToks. I saw Boris Johnson get booed when he turned up, and they're like, "Wow, that is surprising." And I'm like, is it? It's like when even like the people that love the royal family are turning on you, things aren't great as a Tory.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But so I've been enjoying those celebrations.
Good.
How are you, Sam?
Yeah, not too bad. Been away in the continent of Europe for the past week. In the EU, should I say? I've been in Portugal. I don't know why I wasn't saying where I've been. I've been in Portugal. Had
Britain's oldest allies makes sense.
Yeah. Keeping with the theme of the Platty Jubes there.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep mentioning it now because Hamish hated it, so I can see his face.
I'm just going to get goosebumps the rest of the day.
But yeah, been good. Yeah, hadn't had time to prepare anything, and luckily Lewis stepped in and
saved the day.
Saved the day as always.
Saved the project.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the main topic of the episode, we've got time codes.
Are you going to ask Hamish how he
Hamish
is?
You already asked him how he was.
I'm
how are
very
you,
excited.
Hamish?
I'm still excited.
Okay,
Hamish,
okay.
how are you?
just want to check because he doesn't look that excited.
Go on, Hamish, how are you? Tell us some more.
I'm very good. I think I've been enjoying these 4 days getting fairly inebriated.
Okay.
Yeah.
And probably not going to recover for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, excited.
And you're on the peach iced tea, aren't you? Is that a bit of a detox there?
I've actually got rum in it. So
okay.
Okay.
It's all rum, actually, there. But yeah, as I was saying, before we get into the main topic, we've got time codes in the episode description. So if you want to skip past any more of this very colourful, not inane chatter at all, then you can get there. But we have a first segment, don't we, Lewis?
We do. Project news.
You're enjoying the themes, Hamish? You've heard a few of them.
The sound
haven't you?
effects are great as well, to be honest. That's one of my
That's the only one we do live, so...
Yeah, you won't hear any other ones. They're all edited.
It was the excitement in both of your faces.
It's because I never know which one's going to come up. There's a list of like 7 or 8 different ones made by this guy, Steve Oxon, and I just press play on one of them and it comes out and you're like, oh, yeah. I haven't gone to play the whole minute full versions
No,
yet.
there's some extended.
Yet. Maybe if we know we're going to have a particularly short episode. I'll play
Sorry, what was that, Sam?
That's our new theme tune.
So just isolate that now.
So the first bit of news, as always, I've Googled the word project, looked what's come up. Fortunately, Sam found one for me because there wasn't much this week.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I was like, when did I do that? About 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. So, from Nature World News, Hero Rats Project. UK researchers train rats with backpacks to sneak into earthquake debris during natural calamities.
Hamish is nodding. You've heard of this before?
Yeah, I read this morning. Very interesting, actually.
I was going to say, was it Nature World News?
Yeah.
I was going to say that's my homepage, but apparently it was.
I've got a subscription, mate.
Yeah. So I think the headline kind of sums it up. They're training rats with little backpacks.
That's cute, isn't it?
To go and find people that are trapped in earthquakes.
Right. Okay.
They're called hero rats. So cool.
Anything to add there, Hamish? From what you read?
Don't they have like speakers on their back? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Was something
So in the backpack is a little recording device, so they can hear if people are trapped.
Right. So they sneak between the rubble and then.
Yeah. If they hear people, if they hear someone go, "Oh, rats!" They're like, "There's a person there with."
But where though? Like, I'm not an expert in kind of earthquakes and that kind of thing, but they're usually over a large area. So you send a fairly small rat into a.
I don't think when an earthquake hits, that entire area turns into rubble. I think it's certain buildings collapse and they're the ones they'll focus on.
Granted, yeah, no, that's fair enough. But still, a big building.
Maybe if there's like a school, for example, has collapsed and they don't know where the people are, they maybe go send a rat in there or two. And maybe more than two, probably.
The rat's going to tell them, oh, they're in the biology room. That's the thing.
The rats come back.
Well, I imagine with the little recording device, there's like a radar detector.
First aid kit as well.
Detector. No, then the rats come out, and then they've got a cat that speaks rat, and then
a dog for the cat. And
they're like, what is it,
they're like, so, rat, what have you seen? What's it worth to you? You gotta make me happy.
Is it because it's a little rat? Is that what you're saying? I'm gonna squeal, but only for the right price.
You've got to offer me protection afterwards. Come on, I'm a rat.
How much cheese you got?
Witness protection for the rat.
Yes, so that seems fun. You know, it's always good seeing animals put to use.
Always fun to exploit poor animals.
Yeah.
I mean, rats don't do much for us, do they?
No.
They carry like
disease.
Germs. It's always good.
Some people
keep us on our
some people have pet rats and they're quite cute.
Yeah, I mean these ones are kind of almost pets, I suppose.
Yeah, that's probably the alternative is like having, I don't know, brand new lipstick put on you in some factory.
I was going to say, where's this going?
I'm still not sure where it's going.
Animal tested.
Sorry, yeah, I've got you.
Not like rat prostitutes.
It's either that or either.
You've been watching too much of Ratatouille.
Like, I wish these rats were just a bit sexier. You just start drawing lipstick on your TV. Or pause it on Remy. And
look, what I do in my own free time is none of your business.
It's a great insight into Lewis's life.
So the other bit of project news
I don't think you can top that.
I'm upset we're moving on.
That's the project today.
If you want to hear more about the rats, listen to our side project, the Rat Project. We talk about rats for 2 hours a day.
I'm sure there's a better pun than there, but I mean that wasn't a pun, so I'm sure there's going to be a better.
The pro rat. No.
Nope, you're right, there isn't.
Something about rat prostitutes.
Anyway.
Timestamp here.
The second one is Johnny Depp announces surprise project days after trial ends, out July.
Is it much of a surprise that he would use this publicity for something? It'd just be the natural way to
it also was making me think, like, do you think this project would have gone ahead if he didn't win?
Yeah, well, probably not.
Because he's now, like, he won, so he's seen positively by the public, and therefore it's a great time to make the most of that.
Did you see, was it Sam Fender, the indie UK artist, guitarist kind of guy? He posted... Oh, yes, that was my secret surname. It's also funny that, do you think his real surname is Fender, or he just went with that because it's a guitar brand?
I don't know. I can look it up if you want.
Yeah, but no, he posted a photo with Johnny Depp and I can't remember who the other guy is, but a musician. He was like, "Oh, these
Jeff
two."
Beck or something, wasn't it?
Something might be Jeff Beck. Yeah, because I think Johnny Depp went on stage with Jeff Beck at a Sheffield gig.
Fender is his real surname.
Is it? Well, and and he said like, "Oh, two big heroes," and then the reaction was obviously quite mixed because the case is quite a mixed kind of bag generally. and he kind of apologized and took the photo down, which, you know, I don't really have anything to comment beyond that, really. But yeah, it's a bit of a kind of...
Yeah, it's a very kind of controversial thing at the moment. Everyone has their opinions on. But the news is that
Moving on quickly.
Johnny Depp is doing an album with Jeff Beck.
Oh, wow, okay.
So,
like, some guy, Jeff something.
yeah, and I'm sitting there like... but yeah, as you said, he went on stage with Jeff Beck. I saw some people in the crowd like were asked after, and one woman was like, it was the happiest day ever. Like, I love Jeff Beck. I love Johnny Depp. I was so happy to see them. And there was this other guy who was like, been waiting 50 years to see Jeff Beck, and this fucking prick turns up.
But it was that one, like, of all the coverage I saw, there was only one guy at the gig who wasn't particularly happy about.
Oh, really? It must have been that guy.
Everything else was positive.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
And
I suppose the cross section of fans, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Sam Fender's pub as well, because he has a pub.
Oh, does he?
In that area that I'm not 100% sure, but I just know he has a pub.
Invested some of his early winnings. I was going to say his winnings in that. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I won't go in too much detail into the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, but it's interesting that he's immediately jumping back, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some role in a film or made by some people who are like, yeah, go Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
and there's lots of Johnny Depp fans out there now who will go see that film.
Yeah,
I don't think Amber Heard's going to have as much success.
Well, she's doing a counter defamation or whatever, I think, or like an appeal.
So
she was awarded $2 million.
It's from something else,
but only because of what the lawyers, Johnny Depp's lawyers, said about her during the court case. That was the defamation. That was the counter sue was just to that bit.
Yeah,
right. So. I see. Yeah.
And she's definitely announced, I think, that they're appealing the decision. And I think Johnny Depp, if it went against Johnny Depp, he would have appealed the decision anyway.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah.
I saw lots of stuff about how like he wasn't really expecting to win. It's just to kind of put the whole thing in public so that he can kind of show everyone that it was a two-sided thing.
Yeah, I mean, in the defamation side of things, yeah, I mean, we don't want to get into a whole debate about it, but the winning of that, there is some sense, it seems, in that because it was made to seem like a one-sided thing.
Yeah.
But as Hamish said, I think that the public opinion is pretty much one-sided, which isn't necessarily the right thing in my mind. But yeah, again, don't want to get into a whole thing about it. Being very non-controversial today.
Yeah, I've just like, people have really strong opinions on this, and fair enough. But as with everything, when people got strong opinions, they vocalize them quite loudly against anyone who disagrees.
And I don't think the three of us here can probably say anything that nobody's said so far, especially from three white men on the internet, you know, like in their late 20s. I'm sure that's the kind of most vocal majority of people talking about this case. So maybe moving swiftly on.
So what we're trying to say is, whatever you, the listener, thinks, that's what we also think.
That is our stance on every issue.
I remember 5 stars.
I feel bad saying that now.
And if we've said anything that you disagree with, it's satire.
Yes, that is the stance generally.
Yeah.
I can think of quite a few things that maybe doesn't apply to, but
no, but it's the most cancel-proof line we can go with.
I guess so. Yeah. It's kind of watertight there, isn't it?
Yeah, we are. We've thought about that thoroughly. We didn't come up with it on the spot one episode of the pod.
And just don't share your own opinions as the listener with anyone else. And then
exactly. Then everyone will be happy.
You have two people who listen and be like, oh, isn't it great that Sam and Lewis agree with me that this happened? And another person like, no, they agree with me that didn't happen.
We want none of that. So no mentioning any opinions.
No cross-pollination.
But do go around talking about the pod though.
Yeah, as Hamish said, 5 stars, recommendations.
Yeah.
Just don't talk about the specifics of what we talk about.
So into our main topic of the day. So as what we always do, I've written a question to start it off and see if you two can guess what the project is about, because although the listeners know, because it'll be in the title, you two are completely clueless.
As usual.
As usual, yeah.
So, under which US government project was a member quoted as saying, where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, deceive, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?
Is it the... Can you repeat the question? I missed the first part.
Under which US government project was a member of the project quoted as saying, "Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, deceive, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest"?
It sounds very positive.
I was going to say,
It's a fun one.
was that Ethan Hunt talking about Mission Impossible?
I
I was going to say James Bond because it's kind of a bit of that there.
Yeah.
No.
Any ideas, Hamish?
Would it be something that we would recognise when we heard the name? Do you think?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Project something.
Yep, it's Project something.
Project.
Quick. I'm going to go into it.
Hamish, just do a random guess. Go.
I can't.
Project. Word association. Project.
SpaceX.
Project Space.
It's Elon Musk.
Exactly.
He's not really a red-blooded American boy, is he?
Oh yeah, he's South African.
I mean, I'm sure he wishes he was, but yeah.
So let's find out if you're right. I'm not hopeful.
Is it Mission Impossible, James Bond, or SpaceX?
So, in 1951, as the Cold War was reaching the height of tension, the CIA began asking the question, can a person be involuntarily made to attempt an assassination? The research into this question was called Project Artichoke.
Wow.
Project Artichoke included trialing depressants and stimulants of prisoners of war during the Korean War, where 25 North Koreans were experimented on before being shot and dumped at sea.
Wow.
The CIA soon realised this research could achieve so much more, including complete mind control. And after just 2 years, Project Artichoke became something else.
Yeah.
Project MK Ultra.
Yeah, okay.
Which is today's topic.
Yeah.
Project MK Ultra. How familiar are you two with MK Ultra?
I mean, some of the reports I've done have vaguely touched on it, but I've kind of kept away because I know it was something you kind of wanted to cover. I know a bit from film and maybe listened to a podcast years ago about it, but yeah, how about you, Hamish?
Not a clue, to be honest with you. It sounds very conspiracy theory, which I enjoy.
Oh, it is the most conspiracy theory real life thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Also, I'd like to say, Sam was probably fairly close. He was saying Mission Impossible and James Bond, and then I was thinking maybe he's going to say Jason Bourne. And the first bit of that was pretty.
Some elements of the Jason Bourne films were based on MK Ultra.
Yeah, because there's the memory, wiping
and
or
being
whatever.
thrown off the boat as well.
And Lewis just goes into telling us about the Bourne identity for an hour and a half.
I'm going to sit back and enjoy every second.
I have not seen any Jason Bourne films.
No.
Really? Oh, the first trilogy's pretty good, isn't it?
I thought a very good film.
The first one's solid. Yeah.
No, never stood out to me.
Well, if a new one comes out, we'll do some silver screen projects on it.
There's some homework for you.
So, let's get into it. In 1953, World War II hero Dwight D. Eisenhower became President of the United States. He immediately appointed Allen Dulles as director of the CIA. That's a name to remember, Allen Dulles. Allen Dulles would be director of the CIA for just 8 years, but you may be aware of some operations under his leadership, such as the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, the 1954 Guatemalan coup d'etat,
familiar,
and the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that one sounds.
There was a bit of a theme there, I thought.
It's the CIA. What do you expect? He eventually got fired by JFK for the failure of the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Because it didn't go.
It failed.
Well, yeah.
He was also then later on the committee investigating what happened when JFK was killed.
Right.
Probably not the best choice for somebody that doesn't like JFK.
Yeah. Well, or maybe a very good choice considering.
But that we're not going into today. Dulles appointed a man called Richard Helms as the CIA chief of operations, and together they set out the aim of creating a drug that could potentially aid in discrediting individuals, eliciting information, implanting suggestions, and other forms of mental control.
It's quite broad then, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just general
manipulation.
How can we manipulate people? And this was the central goal of MK Ultra.
Right. Okay.
They needed somebody to head MK Ultra, so Allen Dulles picked Sidney Gottlieb, who is the main person I'll be talking about for this.
I feel like I've heard his name before.
Maybe from this. This is like the only famous thing he did.
Oh, okay.
Are we going to find something out about you, Sam?
Yeah, you're going to read out some old activation words and I'll start swinging.
The numbers are going to come out.
It's like
It's Call of Duty Black Ops.
That's pretty much
That's
this.
Yeah. Sidney Gottlieb was a bit of an unexpected choice. He was a working class Jewish man from New York who was the son of European immigrants. He had a PhD in biochemistry, but wasn't the sort of like American hero person they usually put in charge of the project.
Okay.
He had been working with the CIA for like 10 years, working in labs, but nothing that higher up. So he was a bit of a surprise choice. There's also the fact that he was turned down from service in World War II because he had a club foot.
Right.
So he wasn't allowed, but he really wanted to do his patriotic duty.
Okay, so he was on the side, like he was.
Oh yeah,
very,
he's well on
but
side.
he wasn't like the kind of jock, like army guy that.
But he was.
Expect. What was this guy's name again?
Sidney Gottlieb.
That's Gottlieb. Okay, cool.
Sidney Gottlieb.
Gottlieb it.
So it's,
I Gottlieb it.
Get out.
Gottlieb.
You better Gottlieb it.
Leave it alone. Come on.
So not much.
Gottlieb it alone.
Oh, he's a terrible man. You'll find out. Not much is known about Sidney Gottlieb. Historian Stephen Kinzer described him as the most powerful American of the 20th century that nobody has heard of.
Okay.
Like he was genuinely really secretive, but had great power.
So is he the kind of guy like in like a film about like 1950s, 1960s when there's like a bureau man who's like even a bit like, you know, in Incredibles, there's like the guy who works for that company.
Yeah.
Is he a bit of like a spy bureaucrat guy?
Kind of, but he comes from a biochemistry
More
background, so he's more like a scientist. He's like a
more
like a mad
evil,
scientist.
more like an evil scientist.
Yeah.
I mean, Gottlieb, you know, like.
What are you trying to say?
I'm just saying, in a film, someone with the surname Gottlieb would be
It's a very Jewish surname.
It's kind of German.
Oh yeah, I thought that's where he was
getting. So Gottlieb was a bit of a hippie before the whole hippie movement of the 60s.
Okay, that's a surprise. Yeah.
He spent a lot of his time meditating in an eco lodge that didn't have plumbing and where he grew his own food with his wife and 4 kids. He was also amazed by the effects of LSD. A decade before like LSD was picked up by the hippie movement, he had seen that the CIA were trying to figure out what it was and tried it. By the time he was ahead of this program, he had done LSD over 200 times.
Right, so maybe not the most I was gonna say chemically balanced person.
But also again, this kind of leads into he was a strange choice for the CIA. Because he was a hippie that loved LSD.
There's those videos of them testing. As you go into any of that, testing it on the soldiers.
That's a different project. But
Have you seen those, Hamish?
Men who stare at goats.
Yes, yeah. Which I actually, there was a report I did. I don't know if you listened to the Stargate. I was going to say Starchaser. Stargate, which was a bit. It was the tangential one to this. It was more to do with psychic stuff. So it was very fringe science. But that was related to the Men Who Stare at Goats a little bit. Yeah. So go back and listen to that episode if you're interested in that.
Yeah. So when MK Ultra officially started on the 13th of April 1953, Gottlieb arranged for the CIA to buy the entire world's supply of LSD.
Nice.
That's got to be quite sus when you see that on the purchase order.
A Swiss company called Sandoz.
And then he took it all within a year.
This Swiss company allegedly had 10 kilograms of LSD. This is before LSD was kind of well known, so that was the vast majority of the world's supply. Alan Dulles agreed to pay $240,000 for the lot. But when they got to Switzerland, they found out they only had 10 grams, not 10 kilograms.
That's not very much, I don't think.
Yeah, so Dulles and...
I wouldn't know.
No, none of us would know anything about that at all.
Dulles and Gottlieb were like, well, if we're going to be doing this thing, we're going to need a lot more LSD. So they hired an American pharmaceutical company called Eli Lilly to synthesize LSD. And by 1954, they were selling the CIA LSD in tons.
Nice.
So quite a lot of LSD they've got their hands on now, and they've kind of got free rein to do whatever they want with it. Sidney Gottlieb believed that controlling minds came in a 2-part process. First, you erase the existing mind, and then you insert a new mind into the resulting void. The first part was really easy. The second part was the hard bit.
Yeah, it sounds like the kind of ethos of lots of military boot camps, isn't it? Wear them down, erase who they are, and then build them back up again. But maybe slightly easier if it's more kind of shouting at people and making them feel like shit than actually literally erasing their mind, which it sounds like.
Yeah, so it's probably worth mentioning now, like, the documents for MK Ultra were destroyed, so it's hard to know the specifics and numbers, but there is some stories that I'll go into and general stuff that we knew went on from testimonies, but thousands and thousands of people involved, millions of dollars spent on it. The exact, it's hard to know.
It's very convenient that all evidence was all written documents of evidence was destroyed. Really,
yeah.
It's like we're going to look back in this in 50 years' time and then say, oh, maybe there was something
wrong.
Well,
when we get to it, it's not even 50 years' time when they're like, oh shit, people are going to look at this. So Gottlieb became convinced that the Soviet Union were stockpiling LSD for mind control experiments.
Hey, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We talked about that in the other one as well. It's a very Cold War attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the same when, when I did the Project A119, part of the fear was that the Soviets are going to do stuff with the moon, so let's nuke it.
And a lot of that is probably just someone who, on the US side, who really wants to do it, and they just kind of vaguely make up some stories. Like, I heard on the grapevine that the Soviets are doing this, so we should just really put loads of money into it.
And if anyone argues, they're like, what, are you supporting the Soviets?
They must be a spy.
It's like, that surname, it's a little bit Russian. It's like Smith. Smithsky.
So early experiments consisted of various techniques, including electroshocks, neurosurgery, sensory distortion, and hypnosis. But there was more focus on the use of mind-altering drugs than anything else.
Just sounds like a usual night out in Brighton, I think.
Neurosurgery.
We go to different places.
They used cocaine, heroin, and cannabis.
Again.
But Gottlieb was particularly obsessed with LSD, unsurprisingly, considering he spent the last 10 years on LSD.
It sounds like he was the person who had taken the most in the world at that point.
Yeah.
Like, very possibly.
So that's probably why he was the expert.
How was he getting a job at the CIA? I might be naive in this kind of stuff, but you would have thought they have some sort of vetting process.
Some standards.
Well, I think all you got to do is really hate the Soviets and you get a job at the CIA.
Things are a lot more simple back then, weren't they?
Yeah.
It's probably the same now, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, especially with recent.
Yeah. The project was split into sub-projects, looking closely at different areas of research, such as the promotion of illogical thinking, make induction of hypnosis easier, enhance the ability to withstand torture, create mental confusion to expose lies, and literally like thousands of others. Like there was one project that is just like, oh, I wonder if we can like make this person have amnesia for a day. And they'd spend like 10 years research, a whole like university lab spending 10 years on that one thing.
Wow. So what's the practical applications of that then? Is it if someone has seen some like Men in Black type stuff, is it?
Yeah, kind of that. I think they were just like, what can we do to the mind using drugs?
But also in kind of like the opposite way, like when you've done these projects, like, trying to give someone amnesia for however long, you work backwards from that, and maybe you can do stuff to benefit humankind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hamish is coming in with a very optimistic attitude here, but I like it.
Naivety.
Not sure if that's exactly what they were after here, but
he was a hippie.
But this is what people argue for with these kind of things that, you know, later on they're like, oh yeah, this ended up becoming something that benefited us, or, you know, there's a whole thing with, you know, lots of Second World War devious science stuff ended up becoming...
I read about how in science we had kind of no idea about gynecology until American slave owners started experimenting on slaves, and then that was the first steps into learning about gynecology.
Even in like the 1950s, there's some like pretty insidious mass experiments on like African American women, which actually maybe is something you're about to speak about.
It's not specifically African American women, but they did target certain people. Right, so,
and there's a film about Teflon Dark Waters.
I've heard that's good. Yeah,
it's a very good film, and
That's,
the company who
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo, the company who created Teflon, then
Mark the Gruffalo Ruffalo.
exactly. And they put Teflon in cigarettes, I believe, and gave the cigarettes for free to their staff to see what reaction it would have to these people.
So it's like speeding up the tests,
exactly
the exposure
that, yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, wow, that is Insidious. Is the only word I can think of.
Yeah. So Alan Dulles, the director,
I think the reason I keep saying Insidious is because we were searching for something with INS on Netflix yesterday, and Insidious came up. So I think it's stuck in my brain.
What were you searching for on Netflix?
Inside, the Bo Burnham special.
Right, okay.
Which I can talk about later if we've got time.
So Alan Dulles had complete faith in Sidney Gottlieb and gave him complete freedom and impunity. And his research was a complete mess, unsurprisingly.
He was on LSD.
Dulles didn't really want to know what was actually happening with MK Ultra, and
I wonder why.
and he essentially gave Gottlieb a license to kidnap, torture, and kill American citizens.
Right, so we're getting onto that.
Yeah,
that opening.
This is straight into it. So the belief was that the importance of the project and the ability to control the enemy's mind could lead to complete global power and therefore justified the methods.
Right.
Which is kind of what you're saying about the end justifying the means. I'll go into a few key experiments, but first, let's get a general impression of what the tests were like. Many of the scientists working on the project had no training in psychology and barely understood what was going on.
Great stuff.
A lot of it was just give people LSD and watch and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's something very new, there is a sign that is kind of all you can do. But
observation is a key part of science.
But
we all did a bit of science at some point in school, didn't we?
I imagine if you're testing the effects on the mind, you'd get like a psychologist or something. They didn't. On many occasions, Gottlieb would slip LSD into the drinks of people working at the CIA without them knowing, just to see what would happen.
Wow.
This was so extensive that in the CIA it was accepted as an occupational hazard.
Imagine that on the job description.
Like, it was just accepted that one day you might just be tripping balls on acid
you just suddenly
whilst you're doing your paperwork.
You start hearing Tame Impala playing and you're like, oh God. It's finally happened.
Yeah.
Their Christmas dues must have been something special.
That's when they all take it on purpose, yeah. That punch, the eggnog was
yeah.
spicy.
But yeah, so literally just all the time, just drugging people, put it in their morning coffee and then just watch them for the rest of the day.
You can kind of understand some of the acts that they did just outside of this specific project because they're all
it explains a lot, doesn't it?
It explains the Bay of Pigs invasion.
It does exactly that, yeah.
So many CIA employees suspected of selling secrets to the Soviets were interrogated under the influence of LSD and were threatened with an extension of their trip if they didn't confess. So they'd put them on loads of LSD, try and get a confession, and then say to them, this is not going to end until you confess. And they're just like, I didn't do it. I've just got a friend called Vlad.
I feel like I was being very naive there, but when you said extension of their trip, I thought they were going away somewhere. I was like,
sweet summer child.
I was like, where are they going?
No. So when people take drugs like LSD, it's commonly known as a trip.
Where are they going?
Because their mind goes on a journey.
Yes, I see. Thank you for explaining wise sensei.
I had to read all about it.
Anyway.
So one CIA operative had a particularly strong dose put in his morning coffee and was found running around Washington, terrified of all the monsters that were in every car he went past.
Fair.
And was picked up later that day, basically having a mental breakdown.
Just a description of American people, isn't it? Monsters in their cars. Apologies to any American listeners.
We have a fair few.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't.
It's satire.
I'm sure they don't listen for pro-American chat.
No.
Unless they do, in which, of course, that's what we're giving here. So
This probably isn't the most pro-American report I've ever written.
God damn, it makes you proud to be American.
A CIA chemist called Frank Olson had never had LSD before being secretly dosed in his morning coffee, and he committed suicide 9 days later, allegedly due to a deep depression that was brought on by the LSD that he was taking.
Wow.
So people are dying here, and the kind of experiments and torture is kind of going on, and some
like the
people
side
just
effects of it.
people just can't handle it.
And they probably just saw that as additional data for them, though. Really,
Yeah, pretty much. In
Hamish, you would have fit in very well there. This collateral is actually not collateral; it's additional data.
So to point out how much Gottlieb believed in the ends justifying the means, as a Jewish man, he worked with lots of Nazi scientists and simply continued experiments they'd been doing at Dachau concentration camp, looked at their research, and then just continued it under MK Ultra.
Working with them, or just
working with the Nazi scientists, being like, what have you learned so far? Okay, let's carry on.
So he was like, this is more important than
he was from his parents were Central European Jewish people. If they hadn't gone to America, Gottlieb may well have died in these concentration camps.
Absolutely,
Do you think that could slightly be almost a Stockholm syndrome-esque, and to say, like, my family have gone through this, there must have been a reason. This must be good work that these people were doing.
To be fair, or even just the fact that, like you were saying, Lewis, that he's one of the people that was spared. People sometimes are like, I must do something with my life kind of thing.
Yeah.
And kind of get into a, you know, that could be for a good reason. You could be like, I've been spared because I'm meant for good things.
Yeah.
But you could also imagine Delude just, even last week we were talking about Troy Herbertus. He was spared by the bear and he made it his mission.
Yeah, he did.
He kind of got fixated on this idea that he was spared. And,
I think it is part of that. But I think from what I read, a lot more of it is just like his really, really strong American patriotism.
Right. Okay.
Like he really believed like America's the greatest country in the world. We need to do everything we can to beat the Soviets.
Right, I see.
Whatever it takes.
So he was born in Central Europe. Though,
No, he was his
they
parents
moved away
moved
before, right? Okay,
and then he
so
was
he
born.
was an American.
He was American born and bred.
Yeah.
Because these were Nazi experiments, they often consisted of torture, and lots of people died in these specific ones.
Lovely.
Because that's what happens when you work with the Nazis. They also had volunteers on this, so they'd put out like, "Oh, we're doing some science tests."
You want to watch a cool night show?
Yeah.
Come here.
The volunteers were often
Free drugs.
They often got the worst treatment because they'd signed up for it, so they could kind of get away with doing more. 7 of these volunteers were given LSD for 77 consecutive days.
Wow.
To see what would happen to them.
Do we know what happened to them?
No, it's not clear. It's just, some of them probably died.
What period is this in? Is it all kind of?
So this is in the
from
50s. So the peak is from 53 to 63. Is kind of the main stuff here is going on.
I'm trying to think of some sort of popular musician who had their start in the late 50s.
Well, there might be something that comes up.
Okay, wow, okay. I genuinely didn't know that. I was going to go, oh yeah,
maybe
that's
not
where,
too famous.
That's where this person got their start, because they had 77 days of LSD.
They picked up one patient who was in a mentally ill hospital, and he was on LSD for 174 days consecutively.
Wow.
So he only had a break when he was sleeping. 174
and even
days
then, it
non-stop.
lost a fair amount, doesn't it? So you wouldn't really ever fully recover.
They just topped him up like once or twice a day.
Your own world.
You'd just pretend to be asleep all the time, wouldn't you?
It doesn't mean he's not enjoying it though. All the time.
This person was already struggling with his mental health,
and they were a volunteer, were they?
They
were picked up from the
hospital.
Right.
They didn't have a say in it, and they were having mental.
So they were kind of like, "We see if you can cure this schizophrenia,
or just
even not just cure it."
What happens to a man that's got schizophrenia if we put him on acid for 174 days?
Probably gets a bit worse.
Yeah. Another CIA official, under the direction of Gottlieb, came across a highly aggressive elephant, tried to cure it with LSD.
I thought you meant while they were on a trip. They came across
no,
it very well have been.
Was it a pink elephant by any chance? And then he went on to make Dumbo after that.
This elephant was injected with 2,800 milligrams of LSD and died 100 minutes later. Because they tried to account for the body mass,
of it,
but LSDs are very focusing on the brain. they didn't account for the brain difference.
So the brain size.
It completely overloaded its brain and killed.
And that was actually the inspiration for Dumbo, because for 100 minutes, that elephant believed it could fly.
It was flapping its ears. Someone says he was definitely singing.
His 3 racist crows went and sat up on the side.
There was also a side on it, just to show how much that whilst this was going on, Alan Dulles really believed in what Sidney Gottlieb was doing.
Right.
In 1960, he wanted to create a poison to kill the Prime Minister of Congo. So asked Sidney Gottlieb to create this poison.
Nice.
And he did. They eventually didn't use it. But that was a documented plan they had. He was like, who do I know that could make this poison and kill the Prime Minister of Congo? And who would do it? I know, Sidney Gottlieb.
Don't need a poison. They've got an aggressive elephant out the back. Send it to Congo. It's fine.
So here I've picked out 2 of the better documented experiments they did. As I said, most of it's disappeared. Kind of giving you the vibe of what was going on.
A couple of case studies there.
Yeah, a couple of case studies. So the first one that's happened was called Operation Midnight Climax.
You know what? That does ring a bell, but
No, you're thinking of the US office.
No, I was thinking about what happened last night.
Oh, God.
I wasn't going to go there.
So Gottlieb recruited a man called George White, who set out the mission to find drug users, petty criminals, prostitutes, and others who could be relied on to not complain because, like, people wouldn't believe them. And he would dose them with LSD and, without them knowing, just pick them up off the street, put them in a room, give them LSD, and then watch them through a one-way mirror.
Whereabouts are they doing it in, like?
So it'll kind of all over America.
No, like, is it in like a facility or? Is
yes, they'll have like
place?
safe houses.
Right.
And then George White then wanted to take it a bit further and opened up a series of brothels in San Francisco.
Nice.
Partly because the men who'd visit the brothels wouldn't then tell the story to everyone because they'd be embarrassed about the fact they were.
Clever,
that is really ingenious. I like that a lot.
And
Hamish is like, brothel and free drugs.
some of the prostitutes would have also been slipped LSD. Some hadn't. They may just want to see how people behaved before, during, and after sex on LSD.
Yeah, I mean, there's science there.
Could not disagree with the methodology whatsoever.
George White later wrote a letter to Gottlieb in 1971 in which he said, "Of course, I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun.
There's a lot of metaphors there, isn't there?
Yeah, sorry, the first bit of that. I was a missionary.
So
he's talking about when he went to the brothels, what type of positions
I think he was saying
he was a heretic as well or something.
I've
not heard of that one. How did you do that?
I think he was saying he didn't fully believe in the project, but
he worked
enjoyed
hard
doing
anyway,
it.
Yeah.
And then he said, where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, deceive, rape, and pillage with the sanction of the blessing of the All-Highest?
So this, what's he called, George White?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound great.
No, and he's openly admitted that he lied, killed, cheated, steal, deceived, raped, and pillaged.
Yeah.
And not just admitted to it, but
and
said it's a good thing.
Yeah. And he's like, I got away with it. I love it.
So, which implies with these brothels that he was setting up, he was also taking part in the sex and forcibly.
And probably that's where the drugging of the prostitutes comes in, the sex workers. Yeah, I
imagine killing these prostitutes after.
I guess if they can play, yeah.
Ooh, so don't let your imaginations go kind of.
Yeah, like and he wrote all this in a letter to Gottlieb, like in 1971, like 10 years later.
It's effectively like he would have posted a Facebook status if it had been around now.
That's the modern equivalent.
At least the DM there.
Which it's just kind of mental.
He's got no shame about it.
Yeah,
basically.
but because we don't have a lot of the documents, it's hard to know. But because of that, we kind of be like, oh, they were just like raping and killing people off the streets.
And also, he probably, if he was going to admit stuff, it would be worse than that stuff.
Yeah.
So if that's like the best of it in his eyes.
Yeah.
Well, definitely in his eyes.
Just to clarify, Sam did put up quotation mark fingers when he said best of it.
The best of it. Yeah. And then I pointed at myself and did 2 thumbs up.
So another key experiment was actually in Montreal in Canada under the leadership of Scottish psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron.
Well, that's good they've got a psychologist this time, at least.
Psychiatrist.
Oh, a psychiatrist, sorry.
But he's not exactly a flawless figure. At the time, he was the chairman of the World Psychiatrist Association.
That's pretty good.
So was well known and well respected. He'd also been asked to be part of the medical team during the Nuremberg trials.
Right, I
to
see.
check the Nazis. And he concluded that Rudolf Hess did have amnesia. Rudolf Hess later admitted that he was faking the amnesia.
Right, so this guy's not very...
He's not that good.
He's not got a good track record in the honesty department.
Yeah, and to tell you kind of what he was like, he believes that the mentally ill should be forcibly removed from society.
Right.
So
this is the Scottish guy.
Yeah, working in Canada.
Who's an undercover Nazi.
I was going to say.
He also believed that Germans should not be allowed to have children.
Okay, so
He
not
said
a Nazi.
because of what happened in the war, these Nazis should be eradicated.
Well, he's not a German Nazi.
He's
just a fascist thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fascist, there we go, yeah.
And genuinely argued that like German people should just die out because of what they've done in the war.
Yeah.
So he's got some extreme opinions.
Yeah. yeah, definitely. Yes.
For a Scottish, but living in Canada.
Yeah.
What's that supposed to be?
Well,
you say it's not hard to have a strong opinion in Canada.
Canadians are like, well, anything is all right.
Anything goes.
Very nice people.
Yes. So he was heads and shoulders above them in terms of strong opinions.
Yeah.
He had no idea.
Negative opinions, maybe.
He had no idea he's been funded by the CIA. A lot of it was through like fake companies. But he was equally fascinated with the potential of LSD.
So would he, do you think, have been against it if he knew that he was working for the CIA, maybe?
No.
He was pretty, okay. I thought it was like,
I think he was just happy to be getting funding for doing these experiments.
He didn't sound like he's got the best morals ever. So I think
he probably just went, I don't need to know. As long as they're not German, I'm fine. Anyone can pay me.
But he was getting paid by the same people that were paying a bunch of Nazi scientists.
Yeah.
So.
He's like, actually, no, even if they are German, just don't tell me. I'll do my work.
Ignorance is bliss.
Just add a zero on, don't tell me.
He also had a big fascination with electroconvulsive therapy. Mm-hmm. So just like shocking people until they're better.
Ah.
Yeah, that kind of shocking.
Many of Cameron's patients had come to him looking for help with anxiety or depression.
God.
Some of them left with urinary incontinence, amnesia, the inability to talk or even remember who their parents were.
But they were cured of their anxiety. So
yeah.
It's like, oh, my leg really hurts. And then they like smack you in the head and you're like, oh, what did I come in here for?
Yeah, it's like Severance, that TV show that you
You've been watching any of that?
No, but I've now got Apple TV, so it's there.
I'm only halfway through. We'll talk about it at the
end. So we do have a detailed record of one patient that saw Donald Ewan Cameron,
right?
Called Esther Schreier. To give a bit of background, she'd had a difficult childhood. She was an orphan, but grew up to be an influential and beloved member of Montreal's Jewish social scene. Like all the Jewish people in Montreal knew who she was. She was popular.
Yeah, yeah.
In 1958, she gave birth to a daughter who died just 3 weeks later.
Oh, I was going to say, finally some good news here, and then
you
had to come along with that. Yeah.
In 1960, when she was pregnant again, she developed severe anxiety as she felt responsible for the death of her first daughter. So she visited the highly respected and expensive psychiatrist, Donald Ewan Cameron. Her medical notes while staying at Cameron's hospital show that she was given very little support for her or her baby. She spent 30 days in what was called the sleep room, a place where patients were put on drug-induced comas and woken up for just 3 feedings and 3 bathroom breaks per day, and then put back into a drug-induced coma.
So it's like, is it LSD as well, or is it just kind of
whatever,
just something to keep them down?
Yeah. She lost 13 pounds in that month. Her records show that she couldn't stand up because she was so weak. And this is a pregnant woman as well.
And she just went in for anxiety. That was the only.
Yeah. She also underwent a treatment called depatterning. Cameron believed that breaking down a patient's mind to a childlike state through drugs and electroshock therapy would allow him to work from a clean slate, whereby he could then reprogram the patients.
Right.
Part of his reprogram regime would consist of playing recorded messages to the patients for up to 20 hours a day. Whether they were asleep or awake, these voices were played through headphones, helmets, speakers. Some were implanted in their pillows. Some patients would hear these messages up to 500,000 times in like a few months.
So it's repeated messages of saying like, do this or just
you're
like...
fine, you're fine, kill John F. Kennedy, you're fine.
This is James Bond as well. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember which one it is, but there's a James Bond film that's pretty much this plot as well.
On the 12th of March 1960, Esther Schreier's medical records state that she was considered completely depatterned. She was incontinent, mute, and had trouble swallowing. Cameron's notes say that on the 17th of August, so 5 months later, 6 months after she had entered the hospital, she had had 29 electroshock treatments, with most of them of the extreme variety he was using. Wow. But because she was now in her 8th month of pregnancy, the treatment stopped.
Oh, shit. I thought she'd given birth already.
No, so this is basically during her entire pregnancy. She's going under drug-induced comas, electroshock therapy.
So they're basically like, let's see how it affects the unborn child as much as the mother.
It's good they've got limits. They did stop at 8 months.
Only 8 months.
Give her a break for that last month.
Very considerate of them.
Yeah, but by that point, you can't even have an abortion.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is that. So by 1963, 10 years into the project, Sidney Gottlieb began to believe that LSD couldn't be used as a mind-controlled drug. And yet, by the late 60s, he was running more behavioural labs than ever before. The experiments were just as ambitious.
So he's like, I don't think this actually works, but
I'm getting paid.
And my higher-up's not really asking, so...
Yeah. In Saigon in 1968, a CIA team implanted electrodes into the brains of 3 Viet Cong prisoners. They were then given knives and locked together in a room for a week, whilst agents tried to rouse them to violence with radio signals and remote control handsets.
So they've kind of gone... So that's instead of drugs, they're doing like...
more electro stuff,
More kind of like robot wars.
Yeah.
God, yeah. That's a very... that works.
They didn't succeed. The Viet Cong prisoners didn't kill each other.
But they had very sore headaches.
Yeah.
Well, they were then shot and burned.
Okay.
Kind of like Project Artichoke 20 years earlier.
So, pretty bad headaches then, basically.
Very bad headaches. So, here's a quote from the book that I researched for this. Gottlieb had abundantly demonstrated something that nobody had ever seriously doubted, that drugs, electroshock, and mental tortures could shatter minds and wipe memories.
Right.
But he had been unable to put new personalities or memories in their place.
Well,
so what's that? 10 years of work, millions of US dollars, hundreds of lives, and we just proved what we already knew.
Yeah.
It's actually quite difficult to put a personality into someone.
This is by 1973 now, so the program's been running 20 years.
Wow.
So I've the last 10 years, not too much kind of happened because he kind of went more to the electro stuff, and it was more just small, ambitious, but lots of people involved. But the more interesting stories come from the first 10 years. But all this stuff isn't what killed MK Ultra.
Right.
It was Watergate.
Right.
Of course, that sounds. Yeah.
So as the Watergate scandal went on, everyone in American agencies were panicking about what could be exposed. In an attempt to distance himself from whatever the CIA had been up to, President Nixon fired the then CIA director Richard Helms, who had replaced Alan Dulles, and was just excited by Sidney Gottlieb's experiments.
Of course.
Richard Helms was the only person at this CIA who was aware of MK Ultra. So he and Gottlieb recognized that with Helms fired, MK Ultra was going to be shut down soon.
Right.
So they burnt every document they had ever produced over the last 20 years, and then Gottlieb retired. So they were like...
On a healthy pension.
Yeah. They were like, so they're going to find out about this soon. Let's burn it all. Burn it all. which is what they did. So 20 years of documents, all those experiments, all those lives are just, no,
Just
we need to get rid of them.
swept under the rug there.
Yeah.
And so
Mainly,
the book you used for getting this information,
yeah.
that's mainly off testimonies from individuals.
Yes. So it's Stephen Kynes who wrote a biography of Sidney Gottlieb. But there was, so the story isn't quite there. A year later, in 1974, the New York Times alleged that the CIA had conducted illegal experiments on American citizens. A lot from like personal testimonies had been like, hey, I got kidnapped by the CIA. They drugged me. Nobody's talking about this. This led to the 1975 Congressional Church Committee, led by Senator Frank Church. The Church Committee...
I was like, oh...
So did I for ages during this research.
The church are getting involved. Oh, no, it's just a guy called Church.
Frank Church.
I think it wouldn't have made it better if a church got involved.
No, I just thought, oh, that's often how these big political movements go, isn't it? The church gets involved and...
the Church Committee...
church gets involved.
The Church Committee discovered 20,000 files that had been misplaced amongst the CIA's financial records. So they'd been put in the wrong folder so they weren't burnt. So that's how we knew about a lot of this stuff, is they would just misplace some of the files.
In their defense, they were high on LSD, and it's probably very easy.
Yeah.
And all the files look like pink elephants. So
exactly. Yeah.
just wanted to get rid
Singing
of
to them, it was very weird.
MK Ultra was just one of the many projects investigated by the Church Committee. With the news that the NSA had been buying phone records from telecommunication companies was the biggest scandal.
Right.
That's what
that
people...
is mad that's the biggest scandal.
But it's also, that's someone like the NSA, isn't it?
It's funny that the NSA like bugging people, even though that was a thing. When's this? 1970?
1975.
1975. Even though it was public knowledge, or at least some knowledge then. It wasn't until the scandals in the last 10 years that people actually believed it. There's a joke in the Simpsons movie that was based on rumors that wasn't like a founded thing. Yeah. And then it came out after that. And it's like
no, they've been doing it for 50 years.
And using taxpayers, that's always like what I kind of enjoy a little bit. It's like, we're using your money to spy on you.
Well, that's probably why it was more controversial, because it's so potentially wider spread thing, and it's affecting the public. It's like, I don't care about the fact I could have been picked up off the street to be experimented on. It's the fact that I was more likely to have my phone records accessed.
This affects millions of people rather than thousands of MK.
Can I get a discount on my council tax if I just give you my phone records?
So Sidney Gottlieb was interviewed during the Church Committee, and claimed to have very little recollection of the activities of MK Ultra.
Wow,
but Lewis, you sound so surprised when you say that.
I don't know if he's lying or if he was just really high for 20 years.
It really could be either. Although we did hear about some Nazi, generals having the same excuse earlier in the story.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly, you just get a Scottish psychiatrist to come down and say, oh yeah, he's got amnesia. Carry on.
They then set up another committee a year later, led by Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, who concluded that CIA experiments had little scientific rationale, and those that were involved were not qualified to be doing these experiments.
Yeah, again,
so it's like,
things we already knew 10, 20 years ago.
And also, are there people qualified to be doing these kind of experiments? Because if so, then these people need to be looked at.
Yeah. Well, one person that you could argue is Donald Ewan Cameron, who unfortunately died in 1967.
This is the Scottish guy,
died in 67 whilst it was ongoing. And in
Our hearts go out to his family.
In 1984, his experiments were uncovered, and it was discovered that as well as the CIA, the Canadian government were funding him.
Right.
Double
the paycheck.
Yeah.
Half the work.
127 of his victims sued the Canadian government and were each awarded $100,000.
Okay.
Also, the Esther Schreier was one of those that sued, as well as her baby. So her son claims that he was also a victim because...
I was going to say it's not still a baby at this point.
No.
Do we know whether he was born with any kind of
think he was
afflictions?
fine.
He was, okay.
That's very surprising.
That's not an advertisement for taking LSD during 8 months
I think it's more the fact that she was drugged and she didn't get
Yeah.
much food that would have contributed.
And there is like interviews with him, and he says like the person that like people describe his mum as being is a completely different person to how he knew his mum.
And she came out with incontinence, not being able to speak to people,
inability to swallow. She eventually recovered some of that, but was still just kind of a wreck completely, because that's what happens when you do that stuff.
When you're abused for
I don't think we need experiments to prove these kind of things.
Another thing that came out, so Frank Olson, who was the chemist that committed suicide, in the 90s, his family disputed the suicide ruling, as just days before his death, he'd quit the CIA, citing the fact that he was drugged, as well as his disgust with the CIA's development of assassination techniques, use of biological warfare, use of the Nazi scientists, and MK Ultra in general. When his body was restudied in 1994, it was discovered that he had been knocked unconscious before he fell from a 9th floor window.
Okay, yeah. So that would be very, very slim chance that was a suicide.
His family sued the US government, who awarded his family $750,000.
And they went on to become Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen and Elizabeth Olsen.
Oh, unfortunately, it's spelled differently.
It works so well. Oh, God damn.
But yeah, so we've also got a bit of the classic CIA killing people that might talk.
Yeah.
Imagine writing that letter to your boss that you want to leave your job, and those were the reasons why you wanted to leave your job,
which are completely fair reasons.
But
any of them are fair reasons.
Imagine writing that down on your notice, and
all of those things are like highly illegal.
Do you think he had to do a notice period as well? He had to stay there for 3 months because he'd been there for over 5 years.
And they're like, shit, what are we going to do? They've got 3 months to plan it out.
So Sidney Gottlieb eventually committed suicide in the 90s, apparently unable to get over what he'd done to so many people. I think partly because it wasn't a success. It then turned out that it was all kind of a big waste, and he kind of struggled dealing with that. His biographer, the previously mentioned, Stephen Kinzer, argues that an inadvertent result of Gottlieb's experiments was the rise of psychedelic counterculture, as it was the CIA who first introduced the American population to LSD.
Right, okay.
Particularly as influential LSD advocates, such as poet Allen Ginsberg and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest author Ken Kesey were both part of MK Ultra.
I was going to mention, when you were talking about electroshock therapy, I was going to talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because that's the thing that comes to mind when I think of that.
There you go. Now you can see why, because he was a volunteer. And also, although not part of MK Ultra, John Lennon once said, "We must always remember to thank the CIA for LSD."
Thanks for the clarification just before that as well. It was not part of.
Other famous subjects included Grateful Dead lyricist Robert Hunter,
right?
Sirhan Sirhan, who murdered Robert Kennedy, and Ted Kaczynski, who better known as the Unabomber, who spent over 200 hours as part of MK Ultra.
Wow.
So, and I think drastically changed who he was as a person.
Yeah. From what I know,
he was like
about
a Harvard student.
Yeah, he had a bit of a downfall there, didn't he, before everything, and a bit of a change.
So that could be a result.
Was it his testimony? He was saying that he'd spent 200 hours as part of this project,
so
and this was a cause of why he did what he did.
I'm not sure if it's clear. I don't think he ever particularly named MK Ultra. Because he had such strong beliefs in his own thing, he didn't want to give credit to the CIA for creating those.
That gives that more credit in a way, doesn't it? Because if somebody who is mentally unwell says they've been through MK Ultra, once it's already a public thing, kind of is, maybe they just heard of it in the kind of zeitgeist. Whereas if he's named separately, then that could be like more credible potentially.
So that is it. A couple of last bits. I'll finish recommending Stephen Kinzer's 2019 book, Poisoner in Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control.
That's a good name. Isn't it?
There's also a apparently good Netflix series. I think it's got 90% of Rotten Tomatoes, called Wormwood, about the life of Frank Olson.
Oh, fair.
Who's the guy who committed suicide in inverted commas. Right. And there's also a film coming out later this year called MK Ultra, starring Anson Mount.
Hey, your favourite,
my boy Anson Mount.
It does sound like a football hooligan film.
I was going to ask, where does the name come from there? MK Ultra. Did you find out?
So there was a series of.
It was based in Milton Keynes.
There was a series of CIA projects that had MK as the start of it, just so they were all collected.
Like Mark, is it Mark?
Yeah.
Is it maybe?
Just so they kind of all collected in the same group, and then they'd give them different kind of things at the end. There was like there was some really weird ones that I didn't mention because time.
Yeah, no, fair
but
enough.
Yeah, there was lots of different MK projects,
and so then the second word would be the code word for that.
Yeah, so that was Ultra.
I don't know if you've got this anywhere. I'm sure you don't because it's just come up as an auto-complete. But when I was searching for just then MK Ultra name just to see what came up, it came up with MK Ultra strain, which is a award-winning hybrid strain of cannabis.
Yes, I did see that.
You did see that? Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of mentioned about how like MK Ultra has now become something that people are aware of, and people kind of comment like, and there's a reference to it in like TV shows and
well
stuff.
reviewed.
And
that's what we've been smoking all episode.
So yeah, that is my report on MK Ultra. Any thoughts or questions about any of that?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a pretty heavy subject.
And considering that like the vast majority of the documents had been burnt, it's no way of knowing how much
the extent
more
of it all,
happened.
Yeah. I know. The only bits I knew, so the midnight climax, the two-way mirror stuff was something I'd heard bits about.
Yeah.
And you know, I think a lot of the ones that, well, not the couple of ones we talked about before are kind of almost like the follow-ons from this kind of thing.
It mentions the Montauk project at some point as well. It's kind of a related project
because Stranger Things is inspired by the Montauk project, and some of the stuff in Stranger Things, like the mum being subjected to electroshock therapies and drugs, is I think based on MK Ultra and stuff. So it's all kind of interlinked and stuff. But yeah, and I think some of the pop culture stuff is really interesting. I was thinking, have either of you heard or seen the Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah, very good film.
Is that something that came up?
Some of the CIA mentioned that actually, because they said that it really affected their research, because some people were like, oh shit, what if there is a Manchurian Candidate? And it was kind of inspiration of them to kind of fight against a fictional story.
That's late 50s, early 60s, the book. So it would have been right slap bang in the middle of that first wave of
exactly.
Of
and it really kind of
basically it's creating an assassin through
there's the film, I can't remember who's the main
there was
guy.
a Denzel Washington one, I think.
There was a film in the 50s or early 60s as well.
I think the Denzel Washington's probably 90s maybe, or late 80s or something. But yeah, it's so it's interesting almost that author came up with the same concepts, you know, in the same period, maybe based on rumors and hearsay. I don't know, but
from what I was reading as well, and kind of certain impressions that people would give it, it's that the 50s were like a time for a lot of sci-fi alien fiction to come out, and a lot of the time the CIA took that as okay, what if that is a possibility? Like the Project Blue Book that we've talked about before, of just like people write fiction, the CIA go, maybe we should just check that is fiction.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
And then spend like $50 million and 20 years trying to find out.
Or X-Files, which we haven't covered, is kind of very much that, isn't it?
Well, and Space Force now, I guess you've got kind of making that. It's
like, oh yeah, I like Star Wars.
Yeah. But it's the themes of almost control from like the story you talked about it, and the amount of times it pops into pop culture, like a couple of times. But we mentioned the Bourne Identity film, kind of James Bond,
I think Bourne Identity.
They all come into it where it's like and even like I think one of you said about the US military being wanting to break people down and then build them up again to be built how they want them to be built. And that is kind of a theme that just seems to keep popping up. Why? Why did it?
It's almost as if the US government wants complete control over its population.
It's amazing. I don't
maybe
understand.
even their bodies, you know, their reproductive systems. There's lots of.
Project MK Ultra is often described as like the biggest conspiracy theory that turned out to be true. Because like, America. The US government are kidnapping Americans off the street and drugging them and killing them. No way. Yeah.
So
no,
when
they did that.
was it? So was it in the 70s with Watergate that it came to light, or was it a little bit after?
It would have been
like public knowledge kind of thing.
Public knowledge would have come in like 75 when they had
Right,
the committees
okay, yeah.
looking into it. But they shut it down in 73 because of Watergate, and they were like, this is going to get shut down soon, so let's
Because I know
do it
there
ourselves.
was from the ones we talked about before, there's certain declassifications in like early 90s. So anything that was left over, I imagine, would have popped up then.
I think,
kind of thing.
this kind of never really went through that same phase of declassification because they burnt most of it.
Yeah, right.
And then what was found, those 20,000, was used in that committee.
Right,
so
I guess because over here we usually have, I think it's 50 years.
Yeah, we've talked about it
isn't
before. What's it called? The period of
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can never remember on
But
the
yeah,
pod.
so you get,
We talked about it many times, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's like
but I don't know whether it's the same in America, whether they have an era.
I think it is because
I
I know they released some files about the JFK assassination, but there was certain stuff that they extended the period of time because they said it's still sensitive documents. So they only released some, and it's like, that's suspicious.
I've just made a very long Google search that hasn't come up with anything. So again, this will go back into the canon of none of us knowing what the word is there.
Yeah.
So please write in if you do have the right word for that term. We'll give you the details at the end, but you can find it all in the episode description.
Yes.
was just going to say what the email address is, but you're already on
that's
it.
all right.
So I hope you
it was
both enjoyed
fantastic,
Project MK Ultra.
I don't think enjoyed is
Yes.
probably the right.
It was a
word I would
fantastic
use.
report. I think there was a good amount of.
I learned a lot. I was aware of Project MK Ultra.
Yeah.
I learned a lot looking into it. Be like, oh, fuck,
I know
this
it was
is-
one that from when we started looking into doing reports.
Yeah,
it was
it
the
was
one
something
you
I
had
wanted to
bookmarked,
research. Yeah.
Where did you first hear about it?
So weirdly, actually, there's a song by Muse on their 2010 or 2011 album, The Resistance, called MK Ultra.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a weird title. And kind of was like, find out what that is. And then kind of, it's one of those that once you've kind of looked at it, you see it referenced in pop culture in general stuff. So
because any CIA government mind control thing comes from that in a way. doesn't
yeah,
it? So,
and when people
it
talk
makes
about
sense.
like, oh, the CIA kidnapping Americans, I'll just be like, oh yeah, they're talking about MK Ultra.
yeah.
And that must have been one of their first not first, but one of their major projects. Because I don't know
post-war kind of stuff.
exactly.
Anyway, yeah. Because as I was saying before, like the couple that we've covered, Montauk Project, which is super conspiracy, maybe not even real, and Stargate Project, which is real but was pretty much bullshit because they both fed off of this. So this was we're almost going in reverse order with the ones
Yeah.
We're doing an Origins film.
And
exactly.
and
Project Origins : MK Ultra.
A119 was like late 50s, I think.
Yeah,
so
so
it
this
was in
would
response
be-
to Sputnik.
This would be the kind of origin, like you say, Hamish. And
Yeah.
a lot of these kind of, I guess, also once the CIA starts giving money to these ridiculous things, as we said before, people who have an idea can kind of latch onto it a little
just
bit
gets bigger and bigger.
and go a bit crazy. But yeah, no, I think it was a great report, Lewis. Thank you. You kept
Thank
it
you.
kept it to a good time as well. It was super, like, I wouldn't say dense because that sounds bad, but like, you you kept a lot of information there. But compared to some of the ones I've done, where it's about 2 hours in and we haven't finished yet, we're doing very well for time. So
many
I
characters
appreciate it.
that were involved through.
And
it.
it's
So,
a great.
Well, what
cast
do
of
you think of Sidney Gottlieb?
Well,
He certainly made an impact, didn't he?
but it's also amazing how some of these people got into high positions in government, and I may be slightly naive in that I think people in government usually try and do the good thing. There's many exceptions.
Oh,
I'll
you very
admit
much are.
that. but in terms of like,
the early part as well.
utter
Yeah.
mental people.
It's like Sidney Gottlieb did have a PhD in biochemistry, so he got into like working with the labs.
Right.
Do through that, and then just being like a pure CIA loyalist could just rise the ranks and
but just have these insane views.
yeah,
Like, that's-
absolutely mental.
mental.
It really is. And yeah, Donald Julian Cameron is quite a character as well, being like a really well-renowned psychiatrist who's just like, let's kill all Germans.
Yeah, that is crazy is not necessarily the right word in this context, but that is a crazy view in my opinion.
Yeah.
and that those who didn't either commit suicide,
Yeah.
potentially fell into obscurity through retirement. And
Yeah.
we've
Yeah,
never heard
and
of
And
them
may
again.
well have committed suicide later. They weren't in the public eye.
It's
Yeah,
impossible
exactly.
to tell like the thousands and thousands of people affected by this, either who died in the project or had lifelong changes, like people like Ted Kaczynski may have had something dramatic and ruined the rest of their life.
And these kind of people who perpetrated this will never be caught. I guess that for me, sometimes you see these committees in America. And you don't see it that much in England, but a lot more you see it in America. They get these committees after the event, and it's just, they did some bad stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
legit.
Slap on the wrist, actually, isn't it?
Nobody ever went to prison for this.
Exactly.
Like none of those people I mentioned. Even the guy who like openly admitted to like raping and torturing people.
He's just giving evidence.
Yeah,
That's all he's doing.
because it was all technically legal because they had permission from the CIA to do it all.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a crime being committed, as ridiculous as it sounds.
Which I think, like, turn into current affairs, maybe there is a bill going to Parliament or something like that in the UK at the moment, giving permission for MI5 and MI6 to do assassinations that to commit crimes. I'm pretty sure it's England. It might be America, but to commit crimes which they wouldn't usually have been able to commit.
in the name of defense and
nation state and that kind of thing.
But so that is that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for telling. So thank you for that amazing report, Lewis. And now it's time for
Personal Projects.
Nothing personal. Projects.
Oh wow, that was a good one that I put in there, wasn't it?
It's, again, one of my favourites, and I immediately recognised what it was from.
Hamish, you recognise those little clips that I inserted right now?
I was quite surprised how good they were, to be honest with you.
Surprised?
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Sam, what have you been watching, reading, doing, etc., all that bullshit?
Other than the holiday stuff, which I'm not going to go into too much detail because it was a nice holiday in Porto, in Portugal. But other than that, as I mentioned earlier, I watched the Bo Burnham special Inside, which it's kind of a mixture between sketch stuff and musical comedy stuff. It was recorded by Bo Burnham on his own over the course of a year during that first part of the lockdown. And it's kind of like him kind of going a bit mad on his own, but with kind of funny songs. And it's something that Amy and her family, or her siblings, had got really into when it came out. And I kind of did that thing where, you know, when people tell you to watch something and you're kind of like, no. But I watched it.
I still haven't watched The Sopranos because of that.
Yeah, I watched it finally last night when we got back from the airport, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I think it was, it's very witty. It's very kind of, he's got some good takes on stuff. It's played as if it's a live special, but with him on his own. And you see a lot of the behind the scenes of him kind of depressingly setting stuff up in between, and he doesn't shave or cut his hair through the whole thing, so you see the process. And you'll see a part where he does a little song about how, like, you know, he's kind of hopeful that things are over, and it will cut to him like 6 months later with like a giant beard, and he's literally watching that bit that you just saw on his laptop, and he just like looks at the camera, and it's just like, it's like a man breaking, and it's very good. It's on Netflix.
Nice.
I'd highly recommend it. About an hour and a half. And it's the anniversary of it being a year just recently, and he released a whole load of extra stuff on YouTube. Nice. So it's called Inside. So if anyone wants to watch that, it's readily available.
Nice.
What about you, Hamish? What have you been up to recently?
So there's lots of Star Wars stuff coming out at the moment.
There is.
I've kind of considered. Well, I've just bought myself some miniatures, Star Wars miniatures.
Okay,
nice.
So Star Wars Legion is the kind of game brand.
Yeah, a bit like a Warhammer kind of thing.
Exactly.
I've also just noticed you've got a Star Wars t-shirt.
I noticed that earlier. Yeah.
It doesn't encompass my life totally, but pretty much does. So it's quite good. I know there's like Lord of the Rings ones, like you say, it's Warhammer 40k, and then there's usual Warhammer.
Okay, yeah.
You've just got random stuff. But yeah, so I've tried to been slowly getting into that.
Okay, cool.
And it's quite entertaining, but the problem is you need to kind of spend a bit of money in it to be able to do some decent games. Like a pack I bought recently, which was, I thought, fairly modestly priced, was God, there was about 5 stormtroopers for £25, which was fairly decent. I thought actually.
But if you're for a small skirmish, a couple of them make sense. I suppose.
Exactly.
It builds, and then I suppose like an 80-80 or whatever would be like. Bump that price up quite a bit.
And you kind of see tournaments going on all over the world, and you've got like 1,000-point army, let's say. Each thing, like one normal trooper's worth 5 points or whatever.
Right.
So then you look at these tables full of characters, and you're like, you spent like 250, 300 quid easily on all this.
Wow.
Some people really get into their hobbies.
And you're not getting anything out of it apart from enjoyment. But actually, I think there's a guy I know who does, and I can't remember which, but it's a space one instead of a land one for Star Wars. And
of course, they're not interchangeable. Of course.
Come on, they want as much money out of us mugs as they possibly can get. And he goes to competitions, and he's won a couple of regional competitions.
Oh, so there are prize money.
Yes, you do win prize money from that, but it doesn't
but
really.
to get to that point, you're spending half the prize money on
exactly. And you've got 2 people who win it prize money out of 80 people who turned up for the tournament.
Right.
So
it'd be fun to turn up with just like a single stormtrooper and like, come on then, guys,
come at me, bro.
You've just glued on like some extra armor. He's got Boba Fett's helmet stuck on top of his other helmet.
you just glue it onto like the Enterprise or something, and you're like, the rules didn't say you couldn't have the Enterprise.
He's got the Death Star for a head.
He gets 5 extra shots with that. It's great.
That's all. He spent 300 quid on this Death Star. All the pieces. It's fully functional inside.
I'm imagining like actual like relative size of like a man with the Death
that's
Star.
what I'm imagining too.
You've got matchsticks holding it up.
And it just looks like the Death Star. If you look really closely on one side, there's just some legs
You're
sticking out.
No, this is from the space set.
And you get like 2 6-sided dice, and then you both are blanks as well. Great.
Fuck's sake, you're out straight away.
2 misses. Oh no.
Oh, that sounds cool though. Yeah,
it's quite.
And you paint them as well.
Yeah. Well, so not very well. But
do you have to buy the paints, or they come with it?
Yeah. So you have to. Well, you can get some standard paints
as part
of it. But if you want to go into any good detail, you've got to try and spend that extra bit. But to be fair, you've got so many shops where I live. We've got probably 3 miniature shops within a 30-minute walk. So that's quite handy.
The miniature shops, can you fit inside them?
It's actually, they've just started training rats.
Brings it back. Oh, nice.
That's cool. Yeah, nice. What about yourself, Lewis?
Not the thing I was going to talk about, but you mentioned Bo Burnham reminded me that I did go to see Bill Bailey last week.
Of course.
Awesome.
At the Brighton Centre. Not much to say. It's Bill Bailey. He's great, very funny, very musical. I particularly liked him doing Stairway to Heaven as a ragtime song.
Very nice.
It was great.
Okay,
there was lots of jokes about the current government, unsurprisingly.
Of course.
But yeah, it was good. But I did. My brother has lent me his Apple TV account.
Oh
for the specific purpose to watch Prehistoric Planet.
Of course.
Cool.
So the new dinosaur series, narrated by David Attenborough, and it's really good. Like the CGI, it's genuinely like you kind of forget that it's CGI. You just think it's just these real animals walking around. You're like, oh no, but they're dinosaurs.
And it's more. Is it more accurate to what we know now?
Exactly.
I've seen because the Velociraptors are much smaller and they're feathered and stuff.
And obviously, I mean, as kids, we would have seen like Walking with Dinosaurs. Yeah. It is like and there is stuff in there that kind of surprises me. Dinosaurs I didn't know. It's got the first episode starts with a T-Rex and his 4 like babies swimming across to like an island. You never really think about T-Rex. David Attenborough explains how they had hollow bones, so they'd be
massive heads that are going to stay afloat.
And they were good swimmers, and you just see them like swimming along, and you're like,
even with their little arms.
Didn't we talk recently about
kick with the legs? Kick with the legs.
Was it with you, Lewis, when we were talking about how they've realised that the arms were probably backwards like an ostrich's arms, or was that with somebody else? There's been some theorising recently that T-Rex's arms, because they would be so useless forwards, it makes more sense for them, even though they'd still be fairly useless, more like a bird's arms backwards.
Right.
And maybe even the same for some other dinosaurs, but because they're a leftover, well, not a leftover, but a preamble to birds.
In Prehistoric Planet, they're still facing forward.
Yeah, maybe it's up for debate. Maybe it's a very recent thing. Cool.
It's really interesting. It's kind of like learning new stuff, and obviously it's David Attenborough at his best because he's always great.
Is there a lot of stuff that kind of challenges what you know, like the swimming thing?
There's and even like the parenthood relationship and kind of things going on like that. I've only watched 2 episodes so far. There's another 3 out that I'm quite keen to kind of get into. I finished watching the second one at like 1 o'clock last night. But yeah, it's like, I didn't know that. Cool. There was a certain type of, I can't remember what its name was, but it had like a claw, like a velociraptor in its arm that it would stick into like a tree trunk. And just
or like
had
a tin of beans or something like that.
And had like a really long tongue that it'd eat like termites out of. And you're like, oh, that's cool. And it's a tiny little dinosaur. And then
like a bush baby or something with the tongue situation. I think they even have a little claw actually, don't they? So
episode 1.
Wonder where they got that idea from.
Bloody thieves.
Episode 1 was coast. So it's like animals live on the coast or sea creatures near the coast, which is quite interesting. There was one like mosasaur that just kind of laid up on a rock and had all these little like creatures picking off like the dead scales and stuff on it,
like a walrus kind of thing.
Interesting. And then episode 2 was the desert, so dinosaurs that exist in extreme circumstances in the heat, and it's like how would they have survived with like no water? And it's
cool.
really, really quite interesting. I highly recommend it. I don't know if you've got Apple TV.
I haven't at the moment, but I had a free thing at one point. I
think I saw you could get it free for 3 months with like a PlayStation Plus account.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I should get. Well, I think you as well, Hamish, should get on that.
Yeah, because I downloaded it on my PlayStation and it came up. For 3 months and then $4.99 per month. And I was like, cool, but I've already got my brother's login.
Yeah, because we mentioned earlier, either on or off board, Severance is something I've mentioned before, and I'm kind of partway through it. But I've been watching it from whatever the name is, the guy up the street who gives me the free VHS.
Horrid BO Max.
Horrid BO Max. And so it would be nice to watch it without having to go down to my local corner and
I will say so I had when I got into Apple TV, kind of had a look for everything, and Prehistoric Planet and Severance were the only things that I was like, I want to watch that. So much of it is like you pay for, like Amazon. And then all the original stuff, I was like, I literally never heard of that. There's a couple of Tom Hanks films on there that I might watch at some point.
Yeah, the kind of, I think, war film recently.
Yeah,
Greyhound,
But with those kind of like streaming platforms, I never understand. Well, a load of the films and TV shows I like watching on them would not be massively advertised on them. They won't be at the top of the list of stuff. And I'm like, well, these are the kind of films that I think everyone should love. So why are they not being advertised?
It turns out, Hamish, not everyone agrees with you.
I don't
may well
it.
be that.
I don't believe it. How good was the CGI in the dinosaur?
Really, really good. Like literally, as I kind of mentioned, to the point where you kind of forget it's CGI, and because it's like there's certain shots in like the trailer and stuff where it's like Triceratops is in like night vision, and it genuinely feels like it's just like animal footage that they've gone out and recorded, and then it's like, oh wait, no, they're not real. they've been dead for like 65 million years.
I remember as a kid growing up watching Primeval.
Primeval.
To be fair, I thought the CGI in that was pretty good.
It was good for like 2007, 2008.
2008 probably
they
one of
went
the
wild
best
with
years.
that. They went into the future predators, didn't they?
Which was really cool, like these bat-esque predators. Fight like
maybe
really
I'll have to watch Primeval again.
They did an American one as well, I think, called Primeval New World, which I wasn't so fond of.
Check out Prehistoric Planet. It is really, really good. Highly recommend. But that is that. We've got one
more to talk about. I will try and keep it fairly short, but I think we'll get on the pulse again. So the first 3 episodes of the Disney Plus series Obi Wan Kenobi are out as of time of recording, and I think time of release as well. It will still be free. So we've all watched the first 3 episodes, I think. Is that right, everybody?
Yeah.
And I think we maybe have varying views. I know Hamish is both Hamish and Lewis, both big Star Wars fans. Me, Star Wars fan, but probably more of a casual fan. You probably guys would both agree there. Both of you guys watched Rebels, Clone Wars,
and Resistance as well,
and
and Bad Batch as well.
Okay, yeah.
And
I know
Bad Batch season 2's been announced.
Yeah,
there's
very good.
there's certain opinions with characters from those shows that maybe aren't super popular. The way they've done characters in this. The Grand Inquisitor, there's certain things people don't like, but anyway,
I think the Grand Inquisitor was pretty much on
you,
point.
Okay, yeah.
I don't, like in the animated shows anyway.
Yeah,
the Inquisitors were not particularly good characters. Like you had like the seventh sister and the eighth son or eighth brother or whatever, and one of them was just a thin, evil-looking woman, and the other was just some 6'4" jock kind of bellend. And they're not massively deep characters.
I think the third sister that has been prominent in that is more interesting than most of the Inquisitors in Rebels.
It's just like, okay, it's not a good character. It's not a particularly good character.
Yeah.
But I don't understand where people have expected the bar to be.
I mean, a lot of the hate comes from a very racist place, obviously.
Not
which
all
is
of
not,
it has to be said.
No, but there does seem to be, and it's the kind of woke star wokes or whatever people say.
I guess you get the same with Star Trek at the moment as well, where they go to a certain extent that some people might disagree with. But it's just like Inquisitors have never been particularly good characters.
I've also seen some people criticize the look, and it's like, firstly, if you put like say Ewan McGregor next to Obi-Wan in the animes, they look different because he's animated.
Well, Count
different
Dooku,
voice characters.
Count Dooku's the one that comes up a lot. Count Dooku in the Clone Wars is so exaggerated. He's and the Inquisitor, unless they did complete CGI or whatever, he's never going to look exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly. But it's an animation style. This is what they look like in live action.
Yeah,
and also people get upset about like the different styles. And it's like, I saw one TikTok actually that was like, people getting upset that the Grand Inquisitor in this series looks different from another person of the same species we saw in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And it's like, but like Boris Johnson looks different to Tiger Woods. Like they're the same species.
I've watched a few things with Rupert Friend in. He was in Homeland, which I thought it was very good in Homeland. And I think it was again a decent Grand Inquisitor that a Grand Inquisitor beforehand wasn't particularly deep. Like like Rebels, you had a lot of Grand Inquisitor in, and
a lot.
And it was good. I didn't think there was much depth to the character. I think I probably read more information about him from Wikipedia or whatever than I did actually.
More like legend stuff, do you think?
Like all
stuff that's now legends, maybe. I don't know.
So I think it was they're slightly different in terms of the canon and the legend. Well, they're quite a big difference between the canon and legend Inquisitors or EU Inquisitors. But I think just reading the background on them, that they made up kind of thing in Wikipedia rather than showing it on the Clone Wars. Rather than in the Rebels. Like I don't think.
You don't think they've strayed too far, really? No.
No,
I think Star Wars fans seem to, especially online, like they latch onto little things that they don't like, or just things that aren't my Star Wars.
There's also
like Star Wars is very broad, and there's stuff that everyone likes, and not every show or media is going to encapsulate exactly what you like. But it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean people aren't enjoying it.
It's one like common criticism of the MCU these days is that you needed to have watched 100 hours worth of stuff to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And like, you don't want to be in a situation with a new Star Wars series. We needed to have read every book, every comic, every TV show to know who that character is.
And if you
just
want
show
to,
it on screen,
you're more than welcome to do that. You're more than welcome to delve into the massive depths that is the Star Wars universe.
I read the Asajj Ventress book, who's a character in Clone Wars, and then had her own book, and it's great, and it just adds to the story. I didn't need to read that for what goes on, but it helps add to it, and so that. But we're getting a bit detracted.
Yeah, well, generally, I was going to say, generally speaking, what does everyone think of the
first
show
two
itself?
episodes I was kind of into, but was kind of waiting for something more to happen.
Right.
I like how Obi-Wan is. Like he does seem that exact middle point between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Obi-Wan of just kind of like lost his way a bit, doesn't really know what he's doing. It just kind of, he's a bit weaker and a bit disillusioned, and it's being done perfectly in that way. And then episode 3 kind of had the big moment of Obi-Wan
because
and
end of episode
Vader.
2, you get the realization from Obi-Wan that Anakin's still alive, which he didn't know at that point, and then from then on it kind of goes fully into it there.
And the bit where Vader was holding Obi-Wan in the fire and was
Yeah,
like, I'm going to
yeah.
do to you what you did to me. It
It was
like,
intense
fuck,
stuff.
like, fuck, that was intense. That was a great moment. And like, obviously seeing them fight was a very one-sided fight, because that makes sense within canon, because Darth Vader's been going around doing his stuff and everyone's been in a cave talking to Jawas.
He's also a half robot at this point, isn't he?
Yeah,
so he's got a
exactly.
little bit of strength on his side in that sense. Yeah, Hamish, what about yourself?
I think I didn't expect much from. I've learned not to expect much from the live action Star Wars shows, because I think in general they haven't been as good for me personally as the animated shows, because I think the animated shows have been awesome, and I'm including the Star Wars Clone Wars film, the animated, because I enjoyed that. I thought it was good fun. Like, it was a bit naff, but I enjoyed it.
I think I'm similar to you, that I tend to enjoy the animated stuff before. I would say that The Mandalorian is better than The Resistance.
Yeah, okay.
But apart from that, I think Clone Wars and Rebels are complete top tier. And Mandalorian's great, but I think Boba Fett was a bit weaker.
Yeah.
Although I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the thing. It is having a low expectation, but actually being pleasantly surprised, because I am still enjoying them, the live action stuff. I think that obviously, for me, the silliest bit, and I'm sure it was a massively silly bit for everyone, was bounty hunters chasing Leia through Kid Leia.
Oh
through
my
a
god!
forest.
And the lizard person just like, instead of going straight ahead, just goes off to the side. Seems to get lost for about 5 minutes,
Well,
and then
there was a bush in the
and
way.
then trips over a log immediately.
I was talking about this to my friend a couple of nights ago, and I was like, it's like in a video game where you run up to like a tree and you can't get past it. And it's like, just climb over it.
There was
like that.
There was a screenshot of that part where they're getting chased, and it was put with from the Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns makes his own film, and it has the caption of Mr. Burns watching it going, "We did 30 takes and that was the best one."
It's very apt.
But the layer inclusion was something that I didn't think I would enjoy, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you can't spend too much time with Luke, because he barely knows this Ben Kenobi character, whereas Leia has some history because she puts the hologramic thing out to him. So it fills in that gap. I think the actress is pretty good. Like, she's a good kid actress, generally speaking.
Yeah, which is very rare.
I wasn't expecting Leia to be in this at all, and was quite pleasantly surprised. I think the actress seems a bit on the young side for what she's meant to be, because she seems more like 6 or 7 than 10.
Yeah.
But
but hey,
I don't really care too much about that. I thought it would have been more Luke stuff.
But then he's meant to be a boring farmer. That is his life.
Can't really
his life is.
I think that touching on it at the start will be pretty much it.
Yeah,
until the end,
I did
probably,
like that bit. I think it was in the trailer as well, of him sitting on a thing pretending to be a Starbucks, and everyone being like, "Fuck, he's just like his dad."
Yeah.
But I
wearing
think
almost the same outfit as young Anakin.
I think there will be bits with him where he's like shooting Womp Rats or whatever.
Yeah, you might come back to see
and
bits.
like going to Toshi's station.
And
I've liked
Uncle Owen's his opinion of being like, fuck you, basically.
I like how they've treated. I'm glad it's great to have Joe Edgerton back, because he's also aged perfectly for the role, and you kind of believe him as a New Hope Uncle Owen in another 10 years. But like his kind of attitude to Obi-Wan of being like, look, like, you saw what happened to his dad. Step back, like, just let me bring him up himself.
Yeah.
I read an interesting article where so in the original script, Owen Lars was Obi-Wan Kenobi's brother.
Because we've had the reference now, haven't we, in the latest episode?
Obi-Wan has said, "Oh, I remember my brother."
Yeah.
And so originally it was meant to be Owen Lars.
I feel like they've opened that up to something in future, because they love, the extended families of everyone.
Everyone in Star Wars is related to somebody else.
And I was saying, when we were watching the episodes last night to Amy, I was like, oh, we finally got past like the Skywalker centric stuff. Oh no, Leia's in this for most of the time. Of course she is.
Yeah.
But even though you said maybe she's slightly too young for the role, personally I don't necessarily agree. Just because I think she's shown to be a bit snarky, and and I think that comes with a kind of 10, 12-year-old, however old she's meant to be.
Yeah.
I like how she's acting. It seems very much she's a princess. Like she's acting like a princess.
And you can see
but
where
also
she
has
goes,
kind of the inquisitiveness. not Inquisitor, but like the curiosity that
Well, that'll be a twist.
yeah, but
For about 5 years, she was the Grand Inquisitor.
she does seem like a younger version of the Leia we see in the original trilogy.
Kind, standing up to bullies.
Yeah.
But I think
inquisitive.
if you looked at her, you'd predict she's a bit younger than 10.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
maybe she's small. Like
She's just small.
Carrie Fisher was small, so
Yeah.
Where do you guys think that it's kind of going? I mean, I think personally we're gonna get a Qui-Gon Force Ghost at some point.
Yeah.
It's kind of led up to that. I don't know.
apart from that, I really don't know.
Was it Quinlan Voss they mentioned
Quinlan
at one
Voss.
point? Do you think
He
maybe
was actually... Well, I'll let Lewis talk about this.
Yeah, so I mentioned the Asajj Ventress book that I read.
Yeah,
it's her and Quinlan that go off on a mission together to kill Dooku. And people have theorized that Quinlan Voss is in the Phantom Menace, which it's not confirmed, but he is it. They had a character in the Phantom Menace that they liked the design, so they made him like a Jedi.
Right.
Kind of retconned it.
Right.
Quinlan Voss is great. He's one of my favorite Jedi.
So badass. Like.
So when Obi-Wan mentioned, because they've got a couple of episodes in Clone Wars together. He's like a surfer dude Jedi.
Yeah, I looked him up. They say Quinlan in it, and I went, "Is that Quinlan Voss?" And I googled the name, and I was like, "Oh yeah."
His story in the Asajj Ventress book is tragic. Like it's like he really gets.
I think I read a little bit about it. But other than that kind of thing, where do you guys?
If
reckon?
they bring Quinlan in, I'll be fucking delighted. They'll probably have a few more references to maybe TV characters.
Yeah,
because they can. In general, plot wise, I really have no idea because Leia's essentially going to be back with Bail in the next episode.
Well, I mean, what's the third sister? I think she's called Raya, is she?
Yeah, something like that.
Which is funny because everyone hated Ray and they just added an A on and they hate there too. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. But she that moment when she looks down the tunnel at the end of that episode, she seems to have. I feel like maybe they're going to take her in a different direction. Maybe she is actually on the good side in some way.
I think she may turn. By the end.
Because do you think maybe she was one of the younglings from the opening? She's got some vendetta against Obi Wan.
Well, they are all kind of ex-Jedis.
But in those group that we see in that opening, there's one young girl who looks a little bit like her. That's nothing I've seen online, just from watching 3 episodes in a row last night.
It'll be interesting to see because there are so many young missing Jedi at the moment. So you've got like Cal Kestis, you've got like Ezra Bridger, that kind of thing, that kind of the 5 younglings or however many they were at the beginning, kind of escaping. There does seem to be.
I was saying to my friend the other day, it's funny about like how as brutal and like a universe spanning Order 66 was. A lot of Jedi's escaped Order 66.
The character in the first episode of this is he's just on. He happens to be on this same fucking planet that everyone ends up on.
There's literally like hundreds of Jedi that escaped.
They're really watering it down. I get why,
and there was thousands and thousands of Jedi, and now there's hundreds. So
but lots of the younglings were killed, weren't they? So
one room of younglings. I get it. Like,
maybe
you
it was
look
just
at
that bit.
Revenge of the Sith. You're looking at Anakin Skywalker killing probably 20 younglings.
And you don't know. And even off planet, like Lewis says, maybe. You've
got plenty of Jedi that didn't become Jedi Knights and stuff like that, who became agricultural workers and that kind of thing, and like explorers for the Jedi.
And then they still end up getting hunted down as part of it.
And
maybe.
so they are like still Force sensitive,
so they're still like Jedis, but not Jedi Knights.
Yeah, exactly.
Class. So if you it's a caste system almost. You could
if you don't make it to a Padawan, or if you don't make it through the night trials, you go into other groups of the Jedi, which are like explorers, farmers,
or the librarian,
or the library. Exactly, Jocasta Nu, and in EU,
that's the one.
In EU, she maybe
also
even now, she saves a load.
Is it in the Rebels or Clone Wars where she's actually quite badass?
Yeah, exactly. She's really cool, and that's why I think they're trying to water down Order 66 to bring more and more Jedi.
So Hamish, I'll put you as somebody who has also watched all the TV shows. I know you haven't finished.
Yeah, no, I watched bits and pieces.
If they could bring in one character to this show, who would you pick?
I would like Grand Admiral Thrawn to
a Thrawn.
fit in
I think they're
it.
going to say
that's-
Thrawn for the Ahsoka
I
series.
think that's
yeah,
pretty.
yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But
I'd like Kanan Jarrus.
yeah, it'd be cool.
He could kind of make sense.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
he's a fun character.
And I think that will probably happen because
Yeah.
there now seems to be this network of non-Force sensitives and Force sensitives helping out each other
Well,
to escape the Empire.
we saw in the Boba Fett series as well. They're more than happy to bring animated characters into live action and be like, yeah, this is a character.
I think they're leading into Ahsoka. I think they've maybe cast or are casting certain characters from Rebels. I think they might have
Yeah.
announced
Makes
a couple of
sense.
people. I think maybe
do you know
Sabine
what?
Wren. Is it Sabine Wren?
Sabine Wren
I think
should
she
be
may
cool.
have been cast already, or it's like
Yeah.
rumored
It should be fun
castings
to
and
see.
stuff. So
Mace
I
I mean, to be fair,
I tell you what, I was just
so-
thinking I'd fucking love an Obi-Wan Ahsoka reunion.
Yeah.
Because we had Ahsoka and Luke in Boba
Yeah,
Fett.
yeah.
That was great. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan.
And seeing
Wanna
as
see
the
that.
first time she turned up on screen, we all thought, or at least Obi-Wan and Anakin thought that she was going to be Obi-Wan's apprentice. So for
Yeah.
them to come back,
I based on as I said, I watched all 3 episodes last night, and the recap at the start when you watch it on Disney Plus. You know, recaps are so carefully planned as to remind.
And you may have
Mace
noticed.
Windu is mentioned 3 or 4 times in that.
Yeah.
I would not be at all
Also,
surprised
that-
if there's a hint or an actual real, because they say Anakin is as something as someone and as powerful as Mace Windu. I'm like, if they bring Vader versus Mace Windu and then Vader just fucking kills Mace Windu, like
Yeah.
that would be a real like demonstration of
did,
power levels kind of
One
thing.
other thing I did find it funny in that little recap from the prequels, there was like one shot from Attack of the Clones. It was all Phantom Menace from Revenge of the Sith.
It was
That's where
literally-
all the actual important stuff happened.
I think it was the intro with like the chase in Coruscant or whatever.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and it's like, they
they did some other bits between
really
before.
nothing important happened in Attack of the Clones.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear. But yeah, generally everyone kind of enjoying it so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
And
looking forward to the final 3.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
Looking forward to see what it comes up with because, like I said, I haven't really had such a high bar because it is a live action
Yeah.
TV show. So anything is going to be good almost.
Yeah, cool.
Nice. Well,
Um,
anything else anyone want to add before we move into
No,
the
so I
end
think
parts?
that brings us to the end. So if you enjoyed my report, as I hope you did, you can go on your podcast listening app, wherever you listen to it on, and stick in those 5 stars. It's always great to see. Always appreciate it. If you particularly liked Hamish as a guest, give us 5 stars and we might invite him back.
You can write a little review as well, so you
Yeah.
can let us know specifically.
And if you've got
want him
more
back.
thoughts on Hamish's appearance on the show, you can get in contact with us directly, can't you, Sam?
You can indeed. So you can reach us via email at theprojectpod@gmail.com. So you can send us an email, more Hamish or less Hamish or something in the middle of those two. Maybe some more words even, as it's an email. You can use as many words as
Yeah.
you like. But if you want to send us something on social media or just follow us, we post when new episodes are out every Monday. All socials are in the link tree in the episode description. We're also the Project or the Project Pod on most social media. So just give us a search and you should find us.
Yes.
So until next week, we will say thank you for listening. Thank you, Hamish, for coming and joining us
Yeah, it's
today.
been a pleasure
Thank
having you
for
here.
Thank you for having me. It's been very nice.
Good.
Good to
And
hear.
we will see you very, very shortly.
I will hear you next week.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye.